Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 671. And today's date is May 19th, 2015. And the title of this episode is U.S. Economic Anomalies Point to a Complete Economic Meltdown. Now, before I get started, I just want to let everyone know, tomorrow I'll be uploading the interview with Bernie Suarez. We're going to be talking about the Great Global Warming Hoax. And then on Thursday or Friday morning, I'll be uploading the interview with Alistair McLeod, and I'll let you know about that. Now, if you're on the X22report.com alert system, you'll get an email. If you are on the YouTube channel, X22 Report Spotlight, you'll get an email from YouTube. If not, you can go right to the X22report.com site. On the right-hand side, you'll see the video. Or you can go to the YouTube channel, X22 Report Spotlight, type that in, and it should bring you right to the channel. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand that Greece just made a payment. They have another one coming due June 5th. And we realize that Greece is broke. They can't find funds. They can't raise the revenue. And there are more payments coming due. I mean, the pension and civil servant pay packets are due at the end of the month. And they're going to struggle just to pay those. And the June 5th date, they owe another 305 million euros to the IMF. Now, Greek banks at this time, they are running short of collateral, and they need to stay alive. And as the deposits continually flee the financial system, people are taking their money out of the banking system and saying, you know something, we do not want to be Cyprus. They're looking for ways of keeping these banks propped up. And it's getting harder and harder. And what's happening is these financial systems are going to the central bank to tap more and more emergency liquidity every week. In a worst case scenario, that lifeline will be maxed out within 3 weeks, pushing banks toward insolvency, and some economists are saying that the whole thing might just crumble apart. And this is what we're seeing. And again, Cyrpus is still working with the ECB, the IMF. They can't come to any type of decision. And right now, the idea of going inside the banks is looking better and better to the central bankers. Some Eurozone finance ministers are saying, you know something? We might have to do this. And the Greek people are getting nervous, and they understand what happened in Cyprus, and more deposits are leaving the banks. And we're going to have to watch this very carefully and see how this turns out, because at this point in time, unless they pull something out of their magical hat, I don't know how they're going to get through all of this. According to the National Confederation of Hellenic Commerce, what are we seeing in Greece right now? Well, Greece right now is losing 22.3 million euros from its gross domestic product. 59 businesses are shutting down, and 613 jobs are lost every 24 hours. Think about that. In 7 days, there are 4,291 jobs lost. Every month, it's 18,000. Every year, 215,000 jobs lost. Nothing created whatsoever. Retail dropped by 26.2%. Wholesale trade fell by 37.1%, and car sales dropped by 61.9%. At the same time all of this is happening, Greek banks reject 95% of loan applications. So what are we seeing here? Greece is in a major collapse situation. They've been collapsing all this time. Even though the IMF, the ECB, every time they kept pouring on more and more debt, they've been telling us that no, Greece is just fine. They're okay. We see positive GDP, 2%, 3%. And reality is, no, all of that is completely fake. They are in a complete collapse situation. They are broke. There are no jobs. Retail is down the toilet. Car sales are down the toilet, and nobody can get out a business loan, a house loan, or anything else to help the situation. Basically, this is what a collapse looks like. Everything completely falling apart, and the people there are struggling. 212,897 Greeks have so far submitted requests to be part of the humanitarian crisis relief program. The majority of the needy seek help with food, some need financial aid to pay for their rent, and even a smaller percentage needs some electricity to keep the lights on in their home. And a lot of these people aren't even in their homes because they couldn't keep up with the cost, because they have no jobs, because of the austerity that was pushed on the people. And it's very, very difficult to live through this type of situation. But the central bankers, what do they care? As long as they push debt out and they have these countries pay the debt with interest on top. That's it. That's all they care about. They come in, you can't pay the debt, we will take parts of the country. And we see this happening in more and more countries, because basically what's happening is they're running out of places to push this debt. This is why you're seeing regime change in a lot of these countries, like Ukraine. They would like it in Venezuela, because they need more and more countries to push this debt. Here in the United States, what are we seeing? We're seeing that college graduates, they can't find jobs. The student loan delinquency is rising. And right now there's a new survey saying about half of students expect to be supported financially by their parents for 2 years or more after graduation. What does this tell us? The kids coming out of college cannot find work. They have student loans. They can't make it on their own. And the central bankers, the U.S. government, they're trying to convince us that this will be the new normal. Well, why does it have to be the new normal? If we get rid of the central bank and we get rid of this debt system, this doesn't have to be this way, because the dollar has devalued quite a bit. And as the value of the dollar continually declines, it's going to get worse and worse as time goes on. And we've seen this. It has not gotten better whatsoever. It has only gotten worse. Look at the elderly, those people who are retiring at this time. They thought they were going to have this great retirement plan. They were going to be able to live the rest of their life, someplace where they didn't have to worry. And most of them are getting no returns on their money. Their money doesn't go that far. Inflation in the supermarkets is making it very tough to continually buy food, so they have to take on a second job. It's getting worse and worse as time goes on. We see Walmart is out there, and their revenue is declining. Now, of course, they had all the excuses that it was the bad weather. It was because people weren't getting their taxes on time. Well, all these excuses are completely running out. And their income, their revenue, continually drops. Their sales are plummeting. We see this in McDonald's. Why is this? Well, as more and more people are being laid off, they just don't have the disposable income to spend. That's it. The economy is falling apart. I mean, we're seeing more layoffs. We're seeing Rolls-Royce Group, 600 more people being laid off. Walter Energy in Brookwood, 400. University of Wisconsin, 434 positions. Bluebell Creameries, 1,450 jobs. Fairpoint Communications, 219. Rembrandt Enterprises, 231. As we see layoffs continuing, it's going to be harder and harder for people to make it. And again, we're seeing a lot of retail closures. Where are these people going to get jobs? As more retail shops close up, the jobs are limited. But of course, the U.S. government, the central bankers are out there. They are trying to convince us that everything is fine, and all of a sudden today, we see housing starts explode to recovery highs, the highest since November 2007, jumping 20.2% month on month. This is the second biggest month on month jump in history. Now, we saw this with the GDP, and we know that this is completely manipulated because it really doesn't make any sense. I mean, housing starts are increasing dramatically while lumber prices are decreasing. They're going in the opposite direction. Lumber demand is decreasing. So something is not right here. And when we look closer at this, and of course the corporate media is out there saying, oh my God, housing's back on track. It is incredible. No, it's not. I'm looking around the country and I'm seeing that houses for sale are on the market longer and longer. Now, it's not in every location. It's in many locations, but not every location. And we saw this going into 2007, going into 2008, where there are certain parts of the country where people were like, hey, everything is fine. We have multiple offers. Everything seems great. And in other parts, traffic completely dried up. We are seeing this today. I looked around the country and I've seen houses on the market 90, 120, 180 days. I see some of the houses starting at 800,000 selling for 675. That was the actual sale price. They started at 800. They came all the way down to 675. Some houses are still dropping their prices because they can't find anyone. And this will spread across the country. When we look closer at the new privately owned housing where they starts, we see something very strange happening. In 2006, at the height of the market, we see 2.1 million private housing starts. During 2008, the housing starts dropped to 500,000. Today, in 2015, they brought the housing starts back up to 950,000. Only 450,000 more than it was during the recession. And let me just say, this 950,000 housing starts is basically equal to other recession periods. Back in 2001, back in 1991, and going back all the way back to the 80s, we see that we are even with this level of recession. So this is not being improved whatsoever. We are well below the norm. We see that the housing starts as a percentage of population doesn't add up either. In 2006, the height of the market, it was at 0.7%. 2008, 2009, the housing crash, 0.19%. Right now in 2015, we're at 0.35%. Basically, if we go back to 1959, we have never been lower except in 2008. So this 0.35% number, the housing starts as a percentage of population, we are well below every other recession mark. This tells us that we have entered a recession. Actually, it kind of looks like a depression at this point. And what's even more disturbing than this is the last time single-family housing starts in the Northeast soared as much as they did today. Guess when it was? June 2008. Didn't we have a recession in October of 2008 when the market crashed down? Now, I know before that the economy was already in a recession. Of course, the U.S. government, the central bankers, didn't admit it until the market came down. Well, they're not going to admit it again. But if you look at this graph, and I have it on the x22report.com, and if you're on YouTube, you can see the graph visually there, you see that we are seeing the same occurrence. The system is crumbling apart. They are pumping this up as best they can, but they can't hold it for long. We talked about manufacturing. We talked about how the factories aren't producing, and the Baltic Dry Index continually falls. Well, it was pushed up because of the increased capsize rates, but guess what? It is dropping once again. It is down now to 620. It was pushed up to like 640 or so, and it has dropped ever since. We can see that this system is melting down. All these strange anomalies where the U.S. government central bankers are trying to convince us that we are in a recovery, we are not. We are in a complete meltdown of the economy. I mean, retail sales are below 3%. They're below the 2% recession warning line. This suggests that consumers are much weaker than currently suspected by the U.S. government and the central bankers. So right now, retail sales are absolutely awful. And we're entering that period where in other recessions, we are pretty much even with that. Consumer confidence tends to peak and then fall very rapidly just prior to the onset of a recession. This is primarily due to the realization that was expected to occur has failed to materialize. And what we're seeing right now, we have just peaked in consumer confidence. The last time we peaked like this was in 2006. And then it completely fell apart. Here we are. We have peaked, and it is now coming down. We are headed into a period where the U.S. government, the central bankers, will not be able to keep this entire system together any longer. It's going to get tougher and tougher as time goes on. Actually, their economic, manipulated, massaged, illusionary numbers are completely separate and apart from what's really going on in the economy. I mean, they can talk all they want. They can give us lip service. They can tell us that we're in a recovery, but we're not. We're far from it, and it's starting to fall apart all around them. I mean, we saw this happen in 2008. I mean, if we look back then, they were telling us everything was fine. We're not forecasting any type of recession. Everything is contained, nothing to worry about. Subprime, don't worry about it. We're taking care of it. The economy's fine. We went through June, August, they covered up, Bear Stearns, Lehman was falling apart, AIG they were trying to cover up, many other businesses, and the whole thing just started crumbling apart. We're seeing the same thing occur right now. But the one thing that's different is they protected themselves. How did they protect themselves? Well, they're getting ready to take your money. They're getting ready to take your life savings. It doesn't mean that they have enough to support what's coming. It means they prepared themselves by creating documents, making the case that they will go inside the banks and take what they need to take to survive. And of course, blame it on another country or group. This is what they're planning to do. Now, we understand the U.S. government is trying to basically control the internet. Now, they have control of the creation of money. They have control of the corporate media and the stories that they give us, or the propaganda they give us in the corporate media. And the last thing they need to tame is the internet, the alternative media, the new media. And we understand the FEC came out and they were basically putting together a net neutrality law that says, okay, the internet now is a utility. And all of this is being done to basically limit free speech. The FEC chairman, Lee Goodman, warned that Democrats on the commission were targeting online political sites and even media outlets such as the Drudge Report for regulation. So anyone writing a political blog, running a news site, or even a chat room could face stifling FEC regulation on speech. If it does materialize and they go forth with this, which it kind of looks like they're heading in that direction, because what other reason would they do this? Of course, one of the reasons would be a tax, but the other reason is to control what's occurring on the internet. Other countries are already doing this. They're already banning websites. They're already taking sites down. They're already controlling what you can or cannot say. The FEC regulation on online political speech could smother First Amendment protections for some of the unalienable rights outlined in the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, and more. Among other attacks, FEC bureaucrats could force even smaller-time bloggers and other activists who might be involved in writing about elections or candidates to obey a never-ending deluge of federal regulations, and they will never be able to get their message out. Actually, they could just shut me down. If they go forth with this and make us follow regulations, get licenses, it would be impossible to have this YouTube channel and to have this site and have this report. I am just one person. I do not have the funds to go through all their hoops and keep this going. It would be completely impossible. And you can see this is what they're trying to do, because a lot of the alternative media and new media, they are 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 people putting this together, giving you reports, trying to get the word out there of what's really going on, and they know they need to stop this. And this is why they've been pushing for this all along. Now, Obama was visiting Camden, New Jersey, and he announced plans to put in place new restrictions on the use of military equipment by police departments. Now, of course, just 6 months ago, President Obama was discussing increasing the funding for militarization of America's police force. But right now, Obama's out there and he sees what's going on, and he's saying that, he's going to basically ban police use of certain equipment. And some of the equipment is explosive resistant vehicles with tracked wheels, like those seen on army tanks. And he's going to basically ban other types of weapons. And for other types of equipment that aren't under this ban, such as MRAP, riot shields, fatigues, armor, machine guns, departments will now have to provide added justification for their use. So basically what he did was absolutely nothing. He's still militarizing the police. He's still having the police get everything they need. And all they have to do is justify why they need it. And they can make up any reason whatsoever. And that is fine. So basically, Obama, what he's saying is that police aren't allowed to buy the Bradley troop transports and the M1A1 tank. But everything else, all it needs is an explanation. And they can have whatever they want. That's basically what it is. And of course the corporate media is out there trying to convince everyone that, oh my God, see, everything is fine. No, this is furthest from the truth. It's exactly the same as it was. All they have to do is write up a small explanation and they're back in business. The police are militarized. We see that Obama has just signed into law a measure to create a nationwide alert system to help catch anyone who hurts, kills, or makes credible threats against police officers. It's almost like the Amber Alert. It will send an alert system around. Well, I have nothing against the police. My father was in the auxiliary police. My wife's grandfather, uncle, police chiefs, and they were part of the community. They work with the community. And what we're seeing today is something completely opposite. Now, every police officer is not a bad person. But what we're seeing right now is basically the militarization of local police to come in line with the federal mandate. And basically the government wants to control what is going on in the local law enforcement arena here. And we can see that they set up this alert system. So now if anyone, makes a threat or talks back to an officer, they can set the alert system off. What happens when a police officer, which we've seen in many videos, and this is why we see a lot of protesting in Ferguson, in Baltimore, when a police officer covers up their own crime? Shouldn't there be an alert system where the people can say, okay, we just spotted something, and guess what? They're covering up a crime. They just killed someone for no reason whatsoever. Because you have to remember, if a person does not have a weapon, they're not shooting back, they're innocent. They haven't done anything. And the police need to respect those people who say, I resist, I'm not resisting, I'm going along with you, please don't hurt me. And the police, put their knee on their heads, hit them, taser them continuously. There needs to be something out there to say, listen, we just spotted something going on here. So it seems there's a little bit of communication problem with what is going on here. And that problem is they want all of this reported to keep an eye on what is going on and who is going to be a threat to their authority. And they want to keep track of those people. So if you see an incident going down, the alert system goes off. And who knows, maybe something like a kill switch will be tied to this, where all cameras will just basically black out and you won't even see anything. So we can see where they're trying to go with this and what they're trying to do. Now, Morell, who worked for the president, the former President George W. Bush, as an intelligence briefer in 2001 and was nominated in 2010 to serve as the second in command at the CIA under U.S. President Obama, has said that the CIA management of overseas interrogation sites, the black sites, basically every single government knew about it and they went along with it and they knew exactly what was going on. And of course, all these countries are saying we have no clue, we had no idea. Well, I can't believe something like this is ever set up without the certain government bodies understanding and knowing what is going on in their country. So we could see at this point that every country absolutely knows if they have a CIA black site in their country. Now, John Kerry is out there, and he is saying that South Korea is going to continue to seek the deployment of a highly effective missile defense system, and they're going to put it in place there to protect themselves against China and North Korea. This is the THAAD system, and they're going to keep it in place at this time, and they're going to basically use this to contain China, North Korea, and we can see right now they're placing all the military assets into position. We see out in Ukraine that the Ukrainian government is on the brink of declaring a default. Well, I don't think anyone's really surprised about this. We have seen this coming. The economy is completely falling apart. Of course, as the United States government central bankers moved in, had a coup d'etat, spent $5 billion, created war, created humanitarian needs in the country, collapsed the currency, destroyed the economy, put the country into so much debt they can't get out of it. Yeah, they're going to default, because we've seen this in Yemen, Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, Afghanistan. We've seen this in so many countries. It's the same exact procedure they use in each one of these. Destroy the country, take over the government. And right now, Ukraine passed a bill enabling a moratorium on foreign debt repayments. So what does this mean? Well, the moratorium is to protect the assets of the state and the state sector in case of an attack from dishonest lenders. Now, the Ukraine government is trying to convince everyone this is to protect the interest of the Ukrainian people. The Ukrainian government today has introduced the bill that will protect the people, just in case. No, it's actually to protect them, not the people. And they owe so much in debt, and of course they're calling it dishonest lenders. Basically, they are preparing to default, or they're very close to defaulting, and they know that these lenders are going to come after their money. This is what happens. And we can see right now they're trying to protect themselves. The people have nothing to do with this. Poroshenko, a bloc member in Poroshenko's party, is saying, you know something? It is time to get rid of Yatsenyuk. He needs to resign and leave. And we know that Yatsenyuk is a central banker. He was put there by Victoria Nuland. Actually, most of the government was already handpicked in the coup d'etat. And we can see right now the people of Ukraine are getting sick and tired of this. And they want all of this to go away. They want to go back to live their lives. They don't want war. They don't want their economy falling apart. They want to be able to raise their families, live, make a living. And the United States government, central bankers came into their country and basically ruined everything for them. Ukraine set up a new law banning propaganda and symbols. And basically this is discouraging freedom of expression, and media freedom. Advocates say this law has gone too far. That basically it's taking away the basic rights of the people of free speech. And the law is so broad and vague that this can really come down on anyone that speaks critically of the government, and the government can come down hard on the people. But this is what they want. Remember, the U.S. government central bankers controls what goes on in Ukraine. And what you're seeing there is they love taking away the rights of the people, keeping the people quiet, shutting them up, and if you don't like it, we arrest you. Just remember this, because this is what they want to do here in the United States. Even though Victoria Nuland is in Russia discussing the Minsk II agreement, we still have NATO out there using propaganda against Russia. NATO Secretary Jens Stoltenberg said on Tuesday he told Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov that Russia needs to withdraw all troops and heavy weapons from Ukraine and end its support for the separatists, because we know you have the troops in there. We have no proof. We have no satellite imagery. We have no photographs. We have no video evidence. We just know it. And basically, they're continuing with the propaganda. They haven't let up, and they're pushing the agenda of war. Now, just because Victoria Nuland is in Russia, you know, the one that orchestrated the entire coup d'etat, of course she had help, but she was one of the chief operators that put the whole thing together and chose the puppet government they were going to put into place in Ukraine. She is the person that now is going to Russia and trying to work out the Minsk II agreement. Now, this is just a stall tactic. They're trying to make everyone believe that they want peace, that they've given up. And we saw this time and time again with Syria, with Libya, Iraq. And what we're seeing now is the same thing we've seen in other countries. They are getting ready for an offensive. They need some more time. It looks strange to the world that the United States wasn't involved in the Minsk II agreement while they have soldiers on the ground and they're violating the Minsk II agreement. So they decided, let's get and work through this. And they're really not going to make any headway in this. And we see right now that the Minsk II agreement is really going nowhere at this point in time. I mean, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Kiev is not talking to the southeastern people about constitutional reform. Basically, what they do is they dodge direct dialogue with them. They don't even want to discuss it. Still. Well, let's see if Victoria Nuland can work her magic. And let's see if she can get all the points hit on the Minsk II agreement and have a real ceasefire, because that's what I would like to see. I would like to see a real ceasefire. I'd like to see this war come to an end. I would like to see us basically just collapse and restart the system over without a nuclear war. Now, do I think this is going to happen? No, I really don't think so. I think that the U.S. government central bankers are too far gone. They will never let up. They will never admit that they were wrong. They'll just keep lying and still, to the end, try to get their way. And I think this is where they are continually heading. And every time I hope and I pray that they will back off, they never do. Even if it looks like they do, they just never do. I mean, look at Macedonia right now. We know Russia's going to be building the Turkish pipeline. It's going to go through Turkey. It's going to go through Greece up to Macedonia. And we see another color revolution going on there. The only difference is the people are awake. They realize what's going on. And we see the crowds for the government are much larger than the crowds that are against the government. And usually this is what happens in a color revolution. The crowds who are against the government are very, very small. It's not the people, it's the people they can get involved, and it starts out with a small little group, and they try to have this thing snowball, but it's not working. They tried it in Russia, they tried it in Venezuela, they tried it in China, and it just couldn't take off. It worked in Ukraine, it worked in Libya, it worked in Yemen, it worked in Iraq. They tried it in Syria, and it just couldn't get it going, so that's why they had to bring the Free Syrian Army into it. And we see in Macedonia, basically, it's not doing what they want to do. And of course, what we're having is the people who want the government to step down. They're continually making demands saying you must resign. And the president, the MP, is saying absolutely not. I will not step down. I will not resign at this time. I have been elected by the people. But that doesn't mean the United States government central bankers are going to quit. They will do it until the very end, until they can't push it any further. We saw it happen in China. They pushed. Nothing happened. They tried it in Venezuela. It died out. Russia, nothing. And again, the United States government central bankers, they're worried about this pipeline because then the European nations will be dependent on Russia. They will get their natural gas from this new pipeline, and they're very worried about this, and they don't want this to happen. We see out in the Middle East, things have not gotten any better. It's actually gotten worse. The Saudi warplanes have once again continued bombing, and they're bombing the capital at this time, and they are not letting up whatsoever. And U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is out there saying, listen, he was going to have an extension of the ceasefire but because of the Houthis, they were moving all over the place, moving their military assets, and I told them not to because we wanted to get a fix on them. They're the ones who caused Saudi Arabia to continue bombing in their area. If they didn't move, we could have had an extension. Well, that is absolutely ridiculous because United States government central bankers are orchestrating the entire thing. They could stop it whenever they want. They can sit down and have talks, but they don't want that. They want to punish the people of this country. They want to destroy the infrastructure. And this is what they're doing until these people say, I give. We can't take it anymore. Will that happen? We don't know. And we'll have to watch to see what happens. The Houthi movement has called on all Yemeni rival groups to partake in the upcoming Geneva peace talks. They want to have peace. They want to talk about this. They didn't want war. And of course, Saudi Arabia was never attacked. The Houthis never attacked them. Yemen never attacked them. But again, this has nothing to do with that. This has to do with you will do what the United States government central bankers want, or else if we put a puppet government in your country, that government will stay. If you don't like it, we will bomb you until you're on your knees begging for us to stop. And we will teach you a lesson of not to do this again. And we don't care how many people we kill, because this is their mentality. We see the U.S. right now is going to support the Iraqi ground forces to basically try to retake Ramadi. And they're trying to convince us that the Islamic State is all over the place. There are thousands upon thousands of people. And what's really happening is each one of these countries, the people of these countries are rising up. These are the thousands upon thousands of people they're talking about. It's not the Islamic State. The Islamic State is a little group. What they're talking about is the people. They've thrown the Islamic State into the mix to create chaos. And the people are trying to take back their countries. We see it in Yemen. We see it in Libya, Lebanon, and Iraq. And they're trying to convince us that, yeah, it's the Islamic State, but really it is the people of the country taking back their country from the puppet government. We see the rebel forces in Syria. They have taken over an army base in Idlib. They've kicked out the Syrian army. And now they have this region. And like I said in past reports, what they want to do is they want to create a safe haven in Syria. The entire area that the Islamic State has taken over, which is really the Free Syrian Army, they want that area separate and apart from Syria. They want to make it a separate country. So, and it's a safe haven, so they can use it as a launching pad to go into Damascus. And this is what they're asking for right now. We see that thousands of foreign mercenaries are entering Syria through the Turkish borders. More than 100,000 mercenaries are coming through, and they're supported by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United States, Israel, and they move into Syria and they defect right into the Islamic State, which is really the Free Syrian Army in Syria. That's what we have up in that area. And as it was reported over the weekend, U.S. forces came in into Syria. They put boots on the ground in Syria to basically get the Islamic State leader, I think he was the number 2 man, the oil man. But in reports from Syria, Syria's saying, no, that's not what happened. They're saying, we were there, we took him out, and then the United States Special Forces came in, took the woman that was there, and all the intelligence, and we couldn't capture any of that. And I think what was happening was they knew the Syrian army was getting closer. They knew that this raid was going to happen. And Obama, like he's done in the past with bin Laden, used this to say, we got the Islamic State. But no, what they did was they saved the woman. They got the intelligence because they didn't want the Syrian army to get any of this. And right now they're trying to convince us that they're interrogating this woman. They're trying to figure out what has been going on. Have they been holding hostages? No, they're trying to figure out, what did Syria see? What did they get? She's being debriefed. Most of the injured Islamic State soldiers were brought to Israel to seek medical attention. So we can see right now they are protecting the proxy army. That is what they are doing. We see the United States government central bankers are continuing with the propaganda against China. They basically indicted these 6 Chinese citizens. They're convinced they were stealing tech secrets, and they are continuing the propaganda that China is involved in cyber espionage. And this is bringing all these countries into the mix because the players are always the same. We understand that China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, Syria, Venezuela, Brazil, and many others will be involved no matter where the fighting starts. The other players will be brought into this because eventually, when all else fails and they can't prop up the system any longer and it really starts to fall apart, they will become desperate. They will make their move. They will have the event. This is why we see the buildup of the Islamic State coming here to the United States. Because they really need to get into Syria and then eventually into Iran if the P5+1 doesn't work out, where they can get into their central bank and put their natural resources on the dollar. They need that authorization of war passed. Now, right now, it's sitting dead in Congress. It's not moving. And this is why they need an event to convince them that we need this to go into Syria. We need to put boots on the ground. We need to finish this up. If they cannot do this, the system crumbles apart, collapses, and we blame the government and the central bankers. And this is what they don't want. They want us to blame another group. They want us to blame another country. And this is why we're getting reports that the Islamic State is getting ready for a cyber attack. And we knew this time would come. We knew it was approaching. We talked about lone wolves going back like a year, and here we are today. It's all coming together. Now, again, they don't move very quickly. They continue with their process. But we can see right now they're running out of time. The economy is moving in two different directions. Their fake illusion economy and the real collapsing economy. And basically what's happening is, as more and more people get laid off, as more and more businesses close, as more retail shops close, as more retail businesses lose sales, the housing market declines. It's getting harder and harder to convince everyone that everything is fine. Yeah, you can pump the stock market up to higher numbers and reach all-time new highs, but eventually people are going to say, okay, this doesn't even make sense anymore. I mean, Walmart's losing sales, McDonald's is losing sales, Home Depot was recently pumped up from all this new housing starts and permits, trying to convince us. But again, this is a bubble, once again, that they've blown up. They've given free money to hedge funds, investment companies, foreigners to come in, to purchase these homes, fix them up if you want, try to rent them, but do not sell. But eventually, the bubble bursts as you keep blowing it up. And we're starting to see a lot of these indicators show us. They're starting to show us that, yeah, everything is starting to fall apart. And it's going to get harder and harder, especially when we come out of this time period here. Because once the real estate hot market disappears, it's going to be a very difficult time. And when we move into the holiday season and things aren't going the way things aren't going the way they want them to go, and GDP doesn't reach 5% each quarter, how are they going to explain all this away? They can manipulate these numbers just so much. And eventually, the system will come down by itself, whether they like it or not. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.